As Lauren said, today I'm going to go through a little bit about the sonars, the GPS that we have with Lowrance, and some tips on what I do and where I use different things at different times. And by all means, at any time, feel free to ask questions. The more questions you ask, the easier it is for me to relate with everybody and tell you. But I'll go through the basic units that we have. I'm sure a few of you have seen the X-67c, which is the original ice fishing machine that we had, which is the same size as the Elite 4, which is this one. And what we've done is we've changed it around a little bit, where we've made the X4, which is just sonar, or you can get the Elite 4, where you get the Elite 4X, which is just sonar, or you can get the Elite 4, and that gives you GPS and sonar. So having GPS in your ice fishing machine, a lot of guys say, it's an added feature that I really don't think I need, but can use a lot of different ways. Whereas you fish a spot, you don't have to have it on the side of the unit that shows GPS. You're fishing along, things are good, things are, you're starting to catch fish. All you have to do is mark it on your chip, so that when you are on your unit, so that when you're walking out there next time, you can actually have it turned on, hold it as you're walking, you walk right to that same spot that you were ice fishing the last time. I know a lot of guys, and I used to do it years ago, it was all by sight. You used to look at shore and that pine tree works with this one, and that one works with this fish out. That shit, it's gone now. How do you do it? That's the way we all used to do it. We were using landmarks. When you're fishing out on the ice and you're trying to find landmarks, it's a really, really difficult thing. So some people like to use it now, and to put a GPS combined unit together instead of just an ice fishing unit, you're not looking at big dollars. We average from our HDS units, our big units, down to these ones. You're looking between $50 and $100 extra to get your GPS included in the unit. So it really is the way to go now, where you can get a GPS and sonar in a particular unit. Now, I take these and mount them on my snow machine or my ATV. I use ATVs out on Simcoe just because the snow is normally not deep enough, and I mount these on the handlebars. When I'm traveling around, when the ice is thin and I don't have my bike with me, I use it by hand, and I have GPS, I have sonar. Then I mount it on my snow machine, or on the ATV in this case, on the handlebars. There's a special bracket for it. It works very, very well. I put it on the bike. I put it on the handlebars, a GPS. I can drive right out to exactly where I want to go. It has the chip in the bottom here that shows you your depths of where you're actually traveling over. You want to go to an edge or a point or a drop off, you can drive right to it. I drill a hole, take the transducer, flip it over the side. Away we go. Everything sets right there. I don't even take it off and put it back on this. I just have it on my bike on the steering wheel. I sit on the bike, transducer down beside me, and I fish away. Want to leave, drag it up, throw it in the box, and drive away. Still leave it running. Running off the same battery that is here, that is in the unit, which is the easiest way to go is to use that battery. You can plug it into that, or you can just plug it into your cigarette lighter on your bike or your snow machine to get power to be able to run it off your 12-volt system. It's a very smooth system. I have even had up to 10-inch screens on my bike, just because I can get the units and be able to drive with them and see where I'm traveling. So, but the 4 is plenty big enough to do that. You can easily do the 4. It's big enough to look at all times. It's bigger than most handhelds, which a lot of people start off with handhelds and then come up to something like this. These packs that you have here, when you're actually moving around the ice, these fit right into a pail like this. They drop right into there perfectly. They have brackets on them. These are all swivel. They tip back and forth, and they actually turn, so you can look at them from different angles. Your transducer in here is a very simple system. You have a float on it that you can float in the hole. I take mine off. I don't like to have that sponge in the hole. It's just, to me, it's something that gets in the way when I'm catching a fish. All I do is I hang it over the edge of the hole, tight to the hole like that, and as soon as it goes down below the bottom of the ice, I just pull up until I feel it touching. That's this part of the transducer will touch the edge of the hole, and that's where I leave it. Then you have nothing to get in the way when you're fighting a fish. When the fish comes up, All that's in the actual water column is that transducer, which is down below, and it's very easy to work. You don't have to pull it out of the hole. If you get a big one on, you got all kinds of time to pull it out. You can just reach down with your hand and pull it out as you've got the fish hooked up. So that's the way I like to do it, is just to put it over the edge like that. The unit now has a 2 tackle boxes that come with it that go in the unit. Then you can put your tackle in there. You can have enough. In most cases, in those 2 boxes, I know a lot of guys carry a ton of stuff, and I do too. But, you know, like I carry about that much with me. But the average guy that wants to, you know, do the average fishing, you can put most of your spoons in here for lake trout, jig heads, things like that. They go in the bottom here. This bracket comes off. It lifts off through like this and drops down into here for transporting, and then folds up, closes up like that, and you're done. This part, if it's really, really windy, it's nice that you can, you know, keep it low. We did the ice fishing championships last year, and I know for those of you who are out there with us, the first day was unbelievable as far as wind goes. It was just absolutely crazy, and we were like this close to them, so it was nice to be able to get down where the snow couldn't get in. They wasn't blowing on the screens and things like that. It has a couple of things that you can set. These holes here are meant to hang hooks on and put lead shot on, things like that. It's just a little feature. I don't use it myself, those features, but it is a feature that is kind of handy. The bag, if you're going around from hole to hole, depending on the length or the thickness of the ice, if you're working in 3 feet of ice, which is not common here, but where I fish up north, it's very common to see 3 feet easily. And you've got the transducer down the hole, and you want to move to another hole, you can lift it up, but you're going like this across the ice in order to go and drop it into a hole. So these have a mesh on the side of them, so you can drop your transducer, and it's really, really handy that way too. And it has a little, on each side it's got a bag, a zipper bag. You can put a pair of pliers in there for taking the hooks out. So really, all you need is an ice scoop and your drill, and you've got everything. You can go easily in a pail like that. You've got this in there. You've got an ice auger in your hand. You can put your scoop in there for straining the ice. Everything else is in your tackle or in your sonar. And when I say the 4, this is the Elite 5, which is exactly the same unit with a wider screen. Has a room for a chip in it to give you all your depths as well, just with a larger screen. For those of you who like flashers, this has a flasher in it as well as your GPS, as your straight sonar. Same with this, they all have flashers in them as well. I don't use flashers at any time. I don't find any history there, so I don't use them. And I know a lot of guys like flashers, and that's all good, but there's no history on a flasher that stays with you, so that if you're using a flasher, you have to be looking at it at all times. Okay, that's different when you use the sonar mode in these, because the history's there. You're able to actually look at the unit and see what the fish are doing. If you've got your bait 5 feet off the bottom, for instance, a fish comes up and it's a long, slow, sloping line up to your bait that you'll see on here as well. That means the fish are not aggressive. He's just having a look. He's maybe going to hit. He's going to hit. You're not going to know until he hits, and then you go, okay, hit my bait, but it was a slow-moving fish. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't in a big hurry to nail that. You'll see that by the history on the screen. You got the line coming up off the bottom. When I say the line of the fish, which you'll see in simulation here, is you'll see a line coming up. You'll see the line coming up of the fish, and you'll see it go to your bait, and then it'll hit, may not hit, or it'll go back down. If he doesn't hit, he's not aggressive. You know he's not aggressive, so change your tactic completely by going to something smaller or much slower. If you're jigging a spoon, which we always see, guys jigging spoons all the time, hard like that, a lot of fish don't touch them. They used to years and years ago. I remember using spoons like that on Simcoe when I was a kid, and they were great, and you get big fish, small fish on big spoons. Now you never see it out there. I try everything all the time. I switch, I change, and I just find out what the fish are wanting. The sonars tell you that. If you don't have sonar, you have no idea what's going on down there. in the flasher mode, you can see the fish, you know where he is, you know the depth he's at, you can see him come up, you can see him hit, but you're not really sure what he's doing and how fast he's doing that. So with the screen in full sonar mode, you get to see that line coming up, and you know if you see a line coming off the bottom streaking up, and you'll see it because it's much thinner, the fish comes up in a big hurry like that, you know he's aggressive. He'll come up, he'll hit it hard, and that's aggressive fish. The other fish that just touch it or come up very slowly and all of a sudden your line just tips down, then you know that that he's not an aggressive fish. So you know how to adjust yourself and go to smaller baits or tastier baits, being, you know, ones with scent on them, things like that. Any questions so far on the sonars that I brought up? Yeah.
The Elite 4, is it similar to the Mark 4 but just colored?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So so this is the size of them, and again they're able to be used on the ice, on your ATV, on your snow machine. You can bounce them back. They're very easy to do. Ram Mount makes a ram mount for every individual unit that Lowrance has. You can, as I say, you can put it on your handlebars. You can mount it. I've had to mount it on my box on my ATV. That doesn't work. No matter where you put it on that box, you get vibration when it's going across the ice, and it drives you nuts. On the handlebars, you have no issues. Yeah.
Old school LCDs used to be cold, but then
Absolutely.
low temperature.
I've used mine at minus 35 with no issues at all. Doesn't slow down. It says the technical departments say they do slow down a little bit. I haven't seen it, you know, and I test them at 35s as much as I have. There was a picture up there of a large lake trout I got last year, and it was minus 35 when we got him, and the unit works phenomenal. So no issues there. Battery life on a 5, which is the most common one I use now, easily you're going to, depending on depth, if you're running 100 feet of water, you're going to get about 7 hours, 6 hours, depends. A little colder, you know, maybe just a little bit less, but on average you're looking at 7 hours. Now the other thing with these units is they have room for another battery, another gel cell battery in them, which is really handy too. It just fits in on the back, so you can take the battery out, change it, and put it back in very, very quick. I never do it. I never had to do it just because I'm not running, you know, the next day I have a chance to charge it at all times. So, and that's another thing, always charge them. Don't say one day, I used it 3 hours, and it'll be good for tomorrow for another 3 hours. Go in and charge them, Keep the batteries up to the top so that they don't think that they're always going to be half full or half empty. So I always charge them. No, never let it run down. I bring them all back up. I've got batteries now that have, I'm in my 4th year on some of my batteries. Yeah, there is a 7 amp battery you can get too, and I have done that. It's a separate battery that, these are 5 amps that come, you can buy a 7 amp. They're really, really nice. There's no difference in size. It's just that they give more power, and I use a 7 on a few of the cases, particularly in deep water. And I have a camp up north, up by Gogama area, and up there, and we're traveling, we're maybe doing 4 lakes in a day. We're running, and it's cold, and you know, we're deep. We're going into 80 feet, 90 feet, and then we're switching back and forth. So I like the 7 amp battery, but the 5, you're going to get 6 to 7 hours in most cases. So yeah.
So are you saying like the deeper the water you're draining? Why?
Just a little bit more. You just got to push that much power to get things. It's not a lot. But if you're in 15 feet of water, they're going to last a little bit longer. But I don't have any issues or people saying, oh man, the battery life's terrible on these. If you're running a big HDS unit, they use a little more power, yes. Yeah?
How would you compare the Elite to X-67c? If you look at that, I used the older one, the X-67c on Navionics.
Yeah.
Over 100 feet.
Yeah.
And no matter how I adjust my sensitivity, right, sometimes I wasn't able to see my bait.
Yeah, you will when you get over 100 feet with a Elite 4. You'll find it a little more difficult to pick up a small bait. If you're using a good sized spoon, there won't be any issues at all. One quick thing to remember: tube jigs. I use a ton of tube jigs. Tube jigs are very difficult sometimes to pick up. You think they're big and bulky, but they're sometimes a little more difficult to pick up than a spoon. A spoon flashes But I guess it's the fact is it's almost going right through the tube, and it has to pick up that small piece of lead in there. So if you're going into 150 feet of water or 100, you don't get too much of that. But in that, yeah, you may have a difficult time with this one picking up small baits, for sure. Not with the Elite 5. They're more powerful, and they do pick up, the deeper water. But on Simcoe, I use this on Simcoe and have used it, except when I'm into over the hundreds, but very seldom over 100 or I'm in the 100 in Simcoe. I mean, very seldom. For lake trout, 60, 70 feet at the very, very most. So yeah, so in most cases you're fine with something like that. Yeah.
Question about interference. Will you get interference if you're fishing on top of those?
Yeah, same as every unit. Any unit will interfere with any unit. You have other companies that can shut their units down, but if you're fishing with a Lowrance and another Lowrance is 30 yards away, it depends first of all on the depth that you're fishing at. That's the big thing with interference. If you're in 15 feet and the other one's in 15 feet right there in the back corner, you got no issues whatsoever, because the transducers the signal has to cross each other to create interference, which is the big thing. It's not just the unit that creates the interference, it's the transducer, it's crossing over. It's like on a bass boat. You have a unit on the front, unit on the back. You have a 20-foot boat. They cross over at 18 feet. I know it because on my boat, that's what I have. That's the issue I have, is 18 feet. They touch each other going down, and that's where you get your interference. So if you're in deep water, that's where you'll get your interference. That's where you'll get your most problems. And everybody will, I've had, it's funny because we'll fish it with guys that are Humminbird guys and Vexilars, and we're all complaining it's your unit, it's your unit, it's your unit. Yeah, they're going to interfere with other if they cross over. There's no doubt. Yet, I was traveling last year with Big Jim, and he was talking about Vexilar, and they have a unit where they can, and I don't know anything about it, but they have a button they can push that will stop this amongst themselves. But if you're in a crowd, you're in a crowd. You'll find those issues for sure. Okay. These units also, just in looking, if you don't have one on your boat, you can take this off out of your pack, your ice fishing pack. You can take it and mount it on your boat. You buy a different transducer for it, mount it on your boat. You have everything in here to mount it on your boat. You have your swivel, you just unscrew there are 4 plastic bolts that are there. Mount on your boat, buy a different transducer for it, and there you go. You got it on your boat. Take it off in the summer and use it back in the winter. Naturally, all the dealers want you to buy 2, one for your boat, one for your ice fishing, absolutely. But they are convertible. You're able to take them and move them around into different units. These units also have a real shiny corner on them here, which probably doesn't affect a lot of guys. We do a lot of walleye fishing at night, and we'll set the unit up and we'll be going over to a line here, and when it's really dark, we don't like to use flashlights, just because you're looking at a guy and you get the flashlight in his eye if you've got it on your hat. So that flash that is here when you're walking along, it'll pick up any light if you're carrying your own flashlight, and you'll see it. It's amazing the distance you can see that. It's a minor thing, but it's kind of neat. It's also padded all the way through too, so that if it gets dropped or gets slammed in any way, I've had them bounce out of a sleigh up north when we don't put them in a pail. We'll just throw them in the back of a sleigh and we'll hit some bad ice, and she'll pop out and hit the ice behind, and you go, uh-oh, here we go. But it's not a lot of padding, but it's padding, and it also keeps the unit warm too. When you close it up, it keeps it warm, which keeps your batteries a little bit warmer than the outside, than the having the blowing snow. Okay, these are in simulator modes now. As you see, all these lines that you see, and you can of course come up after and look at them, but you'll see the lines that are on the sonar. Those are showing the fish actually coming up to your bait or coming and moving. This doesn't show a bait in the water. If you've got a bait in the water and you drop a tube, for instance, you drop a tube down, you will see it go down. If you don't see it going down, what it is, tubes aren't too bad. They go like this as they're going down to the bottom. They circle, and you'll pick them up. If it's a spoon going down, they flutter off to the side. And I've had guys say, "Hey, Jerry, I can't see my spoon going down." I said, "Well, give it a minute." and all of a sudden it goes back into the pitcher. You'll see it actually move into the pitcher because now it's starting to go at the bottom of the line because you've stopped dropping it. So if they're in that cone, you're going to pick it up. 100 feet of water is 30 feet across. That's how far your sonar is going to pick up on the bottom. I have guys were perch fishing in 10 feet of water. Man, I can't see any fish. Well, in 10 feet of water, you get that much room. You know, it's all you're picking up is a very small area because the cone doesn't spread out. If we made these so you could spread out extremely wide at that depth, that'd be great, but in 100 feet of water, it'd be way out here, which weakens your signal. So you don't do that. It's a 20-degree cone. It's the same cone that we built back in '55 when the units were actually designed or actually built. It's exactly the same cone then as we use today. Same cone, same transducer on this one. Looks different, but it's exactly the same one as on our $3,000 big units, our HDS units. It's the same transducer, just different connections. The Lowrance knows it works, have used it for years, no changes. We have frequency changes for downriggers that we put in them so you can use different frequencies so you can see a little bit farther at the back, which is switchable in your unit so you can tell, same as it is in here, so you can switch it and get a little bit wider cone in order to see your downrigger balls. But again, we're getting away from ice fishing, but these units are all not changing. They've never changed them in all those years. They know they work, and that's why we use them that way. I'll go to a few ice fishing things. In my ice fishing on Simcoe is totally different than my ice fishing up north. I'll go to the north first, and we'll work down from there. I do a lot of perch or a lot of speckled trout fishing. Up north, a little bit of lake trout fishing. Most of it's speckled trout, rainbow trout. The area that I'm in is an area that is stocked. They're stocked lakes in most cases. There is a lake trout lake that's not stocked up there. It's absolutely phenomenal. I fish with 2 lines at all times, and it works extremely well for me. This rod, just so you know, I don't use it with this bait. This is a perch rod, but my bigger rods are up north right now. I have to go in by train, and it's hard to get rods and stuff in, so that's why we leave a few in there. But this is a spoon that I use. It's called a Morsilda. It's made by Blue Fox. It's one that I chose a long time ago. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, just so you know. It's just that it's a thin bait. It's got a black line on it, and this is what I would use on Simcoe. It's a thin silver with black. Minnows on Simcoe are thin silver with black. When I travel up north into the area where I fish, I use gold. I'm gonna find one here. I use gold. I use the same thing, gold, with a red line down the side. All of the minnows in the water up there are gold. Everyone is gold. There's no silver minnows in any of these lakes, and I use a red line on it. And what I do is I jig with this with one hand, and I have a ball head jig, very simple, ball head jig, and I use a power bait on that minnow. I use a 2.5-inch minnow on it, and that's all I use. And I use this in one hand, and I have this in either sitting beside me. Most of the time I don't sit it. I set it on a stand like that beside me, like that, with the minnow, and I jig with this one, with that bait. I do this on Simcoe too, except when I'm in deep water. When I'm in deep water, you can't do it because they cross over, and if you get a fish on, everything goes wonky. You got spinning around. So I set it off to the side. That's how I feel it attracts the fish, because I'm using this all the time to attract. This is speckled trout in particular, and it works extremely well. We got 25 speckled trout one day. On this lake, we were up to 16, each one of us, easily on speckled trout. And these are all 2 to 4 pound speckled trout. With this, and you never knew what they were going to hit. You never knew. We finally started to think down the road, you know, they're hitting this all the time. They're really, really aggressive. Okay, this is working. They're really aggressive. They're hitting that, and they're not hitting that. Yes, it's only 4 feet away. Long story short, they're aggressive fish that day. They're hitting that. They're not aggressive. They're hitting something. They're not hitting this because it's sitting still. Okay, stop that, just start jigging with this. Still didn't hit it, didn't have the flash that had. They weren't as aggressive on that one. Then you get a slow day, you turn around, just goes the opposite. Slow day, they're going to hit this all day long. Then we unload this, and just go with straight jigs. And all I do is this. All I do with this. This is a flip, but just a flip. It's not a big crank, it's just a flip. Okay? And on Simcoe, I switched to a longer one. Again, you know, you go to like a 4-inch one, bigger fish, it drops faster. If the fish are aggressive, they'll hit it. If they're not aggressive, they'll turn on to the smaller one. Downsize, that's my feeling, downsize when the fish are not as aggressive as you'd like. Always downsize. Lines I use, and you know, there's controversy all over the place. I use green line in the wintertime, or red. The only reason I use green line or I use red is because you can see it on the ice. When you're messing around in the snow and you got monofilament or you've got fluorocarbon and it's clear, it's very difficult to see. And if you're in wind and you got it in, everybody gets it, right? You get the mess in your hands and you're going, oh, trying to fish it out. I use red and I use green, and I use the absolute thinnest line I possibly can at all times. These speckled trout that we catch up north, definitely no larger than 6 pound. Definitely. Usually 4. We're usually using 4. The lake trout, 8 pound maximum. Got 2 extremely big lake trout up there a few years ago, or last year, well, one was the year before, but 8 pound green line, that's it. On this rod, it's a relatively stiff rod with a 100 series reel. I call them 100s. That's how Shimano codes theirs. There's, you know, these are HT reels. This is what I would call a 1000, which is smaller, or even a, no, I'm sorry, not a 1000, a 500. So it's a smaller reel. These smaller reels for those speckled trout, and I say up to 4 pounds, no issues. Same, even with that rod. That's a perch rod, but 4 pound. It's a lot of fun. You're not going to break them off unless he gets under a log, or you know, decides he wants to get under a log. The 4 pound is fine. 6 pound. Don't be afraid of it, as long as your rods aren't really stiff. If you put a real stiff rod on, which this isn't, but if you put a real stiff rod on and you got 4 pound, if you have your drag set a little too tight, they'll snap it off, particularly a speck. When they want to run, they make up their own mind they're going to go. This 8 pound on this one large fish, it was over 20 pounds, probably took 20 minutes to bring it in, and we were in 45 feet of water, and he ran 6-7 times. Actually, we have it on video at the time we did it, just for fun, because it was going on forever, and he ran, he come right back. It's 8 pound line. Not the least bit concerned I was going to break him off, not in the least. So don't be afraid to keep your lines as thin as you can and you feel comfortable with. You can get an awful big, I wouldn't put 6 pound line on or 4 pound line on if you're going out for big lake trout in most cases, but try and keep it as thin as you can. It works really well. Yeah. I have. I don't like it. I don't like braid. I know a lot of guys do, but I'm a monofilament guy for ice fishing. Yeah, and always have been. It's got the stretch factor that I like. I don't like the dead-on hits. You have to have a pretty soft rod when you're doing that, because when you set it, you're liable to pull the hook out. So I like the monofilament. I like the stretch. I've had no issues with it. I've had absolutely no issues with it. I cannot remember breaking one off, ever. I mean, ever. I've never ever remember breaking one off. So I've been really, really lucky. But the monofilament works, and I like the green or I like the red, and it seems to work best for me. Perch, when I'm doing perch, 2 pound, 4 pound line for sure. Definitely no more than 4 pound for perch. And we have a lot of different rods, so you kind of get mixed up. I think that's 4, I think that's 2, and you know, you get mixed up. But downsize as much as you can. This is a little stiffer rod, and I really like the tips when they're really light. Myself, when they're really light tip like that, because with perch you can see that. You got a nice stiff rod here, but you can see that. Even with aggressive speckled trout, we get some small ones too, some babies, and you'll see they'll just do that, and he doesn't know he's caught because that tip is really light. This is an HT product. It's got a really light tip, yet there's a lot of backbone here, so I can really crank it. You know, you can really catch nice big fish with that, and it's got light line. That's really light line. How I do it with in Simcoe is I jig with Morsilda, and I use that because I've been so successful with it. And I will set a tube off to the side, and I'll just set a tube off 10 feet off to the side, and I will not move it. And it will, and I'll usually put it up off the bottom 10-15 feet. The farther you bring it off bottom, the closer you can be to your other line. And if we're only fishing 40 feet or something for whitefish and lake trout at the same time, because they seem to always be in the same area. I can't say, oh yeah, this is the lake trout area and this is the whitefish area. Not anymore on Simcoe. I see the whitefish and the lake trout are hand in hand. They're in the same area. One day they'll be there in whitefish, and one day they'll be there in lake trout, and the other days they'll be combined. So I set this up off the bottom, the tubes. I switch back and forth on slow days, but I set it up off the bottom, the tube. And you will see the tube on your sonar. You'll see it at a certain depth. It'll be sitting there. It won't be moving. And you'll be jigging along, and you'll see a fish come in, which you'll see the lines. You've probably been seeing them come in here. You'll see the line come up off the bottom. And then your heart starts to beat, right? Because he's coming up off the bottom. And if it's really wide line, you know it's a good sized fish. He'll come up off the bottom, he'll go right past this. He'll be jigging this, he'll go right past that, no interest at all. And you'll see him start to come up to the tube. You have a history on here. You see what he's doing. You know exactly what he's doing. You know this one over here is gone by this. You can't do that in our flasher mode because you're too confused. You're not sure which one is the jig because you're moving it. You're not sure which one's the fish. You can tell when you're jigging on the screen, on a sonar screen, you can see the jigging motion and you can see the fish starting to streak. If he's coming up and he's starting to go towards the tube, you don't pick up your line. I don't pick up my line and go, oh, I'm going to entice him to hit this thing. I don't do it. Well, the first thing is I do is as soon as he gets there or he's going up to it, I pick up the line beside me. I wait for him to get close to the tube, and then I'm going to aggravate him. Really aggravate him. And that's not by jigging it. He's seen it sitting still. He's interested in it sitting still. This is all good. He sees it sitting still. He starts to come up to that tube. As soon as you see him starting to come up to the tube, when he gets close to it, you want to really aggravate it. Take it away from him. Get it away from him and see what happens. Slowly start to reel it. Okay? Sometimes they come up, and as soon as you start to reel it, they go, this is too much work for me. They'll go back down. Maybe a mistake on my behalf because I could have left it there. He might have hit it, but in my experiences, he's not going to hit it. Start to move it away. If you're in 60 feet of water and you start to move it away and he starts to follow it, start to grin because something's going to happen. Start reeling, and then he'll start to get closer, and as he gets closer, start to reel a little faster. And then start to reel a little faster, and he's still coming up on it and start to reel. Yes, the odd time they'll turn around and go back down. But surprisingly enough, if you drop that bait down to the bottom again, he'll more than likely come back and whack it. Okay? But the best thing is when you start to reel it up off the bottom and you get it coming to the top and you know he's right on it and he's still coming out real faster, and all of a sudden he'll pull it right out of your hands because he'll say, man, this thing's getting to the top and I got to get it. And he'll get it and it'll just be boom like that, and he'll hit it hard and he'll be gone. He's seen the bait fish. He's thinking, as far as I'm concerned, he's thinking this bait fish has seen me and he wants to leave. I'm out of here. So he'll start swimming to the top, and from experience, I reel it up, and the more he's coming up, the harder I reel it, and I've had them hit 10 feet below the surface of the ice, and the game's on, and they're going to go right back down, and it's just going to be a steady stream of him pulling down. So from my experiences, that's what I do on Simcoe whitefish and lake trout. It works so well to set that tube and not move it. They see it, they hit it. They'll hit it, and they'll come off the bottom, and sometimes then you'll never even get a chance to move it. You'll just see the line coming up, and you go, oh, there, and he's on. He'll just come up and smash it. You know he's aggressive, and he's going to hit it hard. But you can't do it unless you have a full screen to be able to read that and see exactly what he's doing. And it's the thing is, you don't have to be looking at it all the time. You can be talking to your buddy and look back and say, oh man, there was one come up, I didn't realize it. And then you can adjust and do what you think you might need to do to make him hit the bait. So, pardon me?
How high do you set the tube?
10 feet off the bottom. I've done it 20 feet off the bottom as well on Simcoe. It's crystal clear. They can see it, no issues. 20 feet easily. And when you're sitting still on your sonar, it's a straight line right across your screen. Straight line. all the time. You know where it is. You go like this and move it up, you'll see it. If you're jigging it, it'll be a zigzag all the way across. You know, as you're.
Your holes are like a foot apart.
I set my sonar in the center, between the holes, and I'll put a hole about that far away, just enough where I can just balance them perfectly. Yeah, and then I can use it if I want to sit it down and adjust something, or I want to do something, or have a coffee or something. I know that if one hits this rod, I can set it hard like that and then start it. No issues with getting them tangled up. If it's 100 feet, you got an issue. You want to get your buddy to get over there and get it, so I'll put them a little farther away. I'm never too concerned about working this one. I'm never too concerned. I leave it on a regular basis. This one, I keep relating back to this one trout because it was so interesting. They say I think we were 40 some odd feet, and I had it about 10 feet off the bottom, and I'm just moving it, and it's cold, it's howling, it's cold, and just moving it a little bit, and I saw the fish on the bottom just for a split second. It was just a hump. If it's a hump, it's a fish. I mean, if it's a flat bottom in ice fishing, you don't get this, right? Straight bottom. Even if it's rocky, it's a straight bottom on your sonar. And it started to come up off the bottom, and I looked at it and I went, my fishing partner's Will Wegman, and I said, Will, look at this one coming up. Of course, you couldn't see it because he's 50 feet away, but anyway, I said, here he comes, and I'm jigging like this, and all I did was jig it like that a little bit, and I stopped, and he come up off the bottom. This line, honest to God, it looked like it was this big when he come off the bottom, and he come up and hit that and just ripped it out of my arms, and it was up 15 feet off the bottom, and he just come up and hammered it, absolutely hammered it. Now that fish had no minnows in him, absolutely no minnows in him. He was completely full of little crustaceans. They looked like little freshwater shrimp, but they were smaller, and he was loaded with those, had no minnows in this fish, and he was over 20 pounds. He's a big fish. We wanted to put him back. He's a big fish. You're not going to take him home and eat him, but when he come out, one thing to remember, when they come out of the water in that cold of conditions, their gills, I don't know what it is, whether they puff up from the cold or not, but he bled to death right there. Like he just bled all over the place. So no time to even take a picture and put him back down. So in that cold of water, but we did take him home. We filled him up and took all the fat off him, and he was good. He tasted really good. Fresh water up there that you can see down 50 feet probably in the summertime. So pretty amazing. Any questions at all?
This is all same technique for whitefish, you said too?
Yep.
No, that too big?
Absolutely. Whitefish and tubes, absolutely. Lake trout and tubes, yeah. Somebody said, what would you only have one bait, I'd use a tube. I've used mini tubes too, little small ones. Of course, for perch, it's a pretty big thing to use the little wee tubes for perch. I like them as well. Perch, I start with the smallest I can come up with. Really, I maybe, if they're really aggressive, I'll go to something big like that. That's a Nils Master, and I'll use that, or a Rapala. I have a really nice one as well, and I'll use that when they're really aggressive. And if the fish are on, you just have a party with them because they're on. But go down small when you're when the fish aren't aggressive, and then get bigger. I'm sure that if I could get, and I can get some bigger tubes, they maybe even be better for the bigger fish, but who knows? If they're aggressive, maybe not. But that size, one other thing too, I hooked the tube back. All the front of that tube is empty. I didn't put the jig up inside. I only put it halfway, because when I jerk it, it goes around in a circle. If you put it right up to the top, it'll hang like this, and when you pull it, it just goes up, and then it falls. But if you put it back in the tube like that, it swirls. When you jig it, it swirls. It'll go around in a circle. From experience of looking down the hole to see what it does. Okay, you do this and it goes around the hole, and go, They're awesome. I have one as well that I really like on Simcoe. Not that one. Has a black top. Okay, it has a black top. It looks a little more like a minnow. I thought these would be just the best. I don't even know where I got these now. I don't even know if you can buy them. But it has a black top. That looks like an emerald shiner to a fish with a black top, or anything. It looks like a fish because it's got a black top. But the white has proven to be by far the most successful. I've tried those. I keep going back and trying those. That color. But again, In the northern lakes, if the minnows are gold, I use a gold Marsilda. This is a silver one with a black for Simcoe. I'm sorry, I thought I had a couple here, but I don't. Yes, I do. Use the gold with a red line, but I adapt to the area. For sure. There's gold with black. I have gold with red. Cyclops works really good in gold. These are the northern lakes. The minnows are gold up there. So if you find that the minnows are gold, your local operator, like I don't have anybody up there that sells minnows up there at all. We don't use any minnows whatsoever. I never use minnows. Never on. Pardon me?
I cannot do without.
No, never use them. Yeah, never use them. It's all artificial I use. But the minnows up there are gold. The minnows down in Simcoe are silver with black tops on them, and that's what I use. Yeah.
So with regards to Simcoe, what time of the year and what depth?
Shallow in the first part of the year, deeper in the middle in the winter.
Shallow.
Back shallow. Whitefish,
Or lake?
30 feet, 40 feet. Absolutely. Most the crowd you notice are fishing 60, 70.
Is that like first ice or?
First ice. First ice, there's so many people around on the fish that you don't have to worry too much. You look out in the Simcoe and you say, oh, there's a group of guys, that's where the fish are. Then they start to scatter. I find them, they go shallow to start with after the groups have found them. And then I find them, they get deeper. And then I find they get shallower in the spring. And then it's too bad our season, well, last year wasn't much of a season, but the best perch fishing is early in the year. And at the very end, when the 15th and the huts are off and the ice is getting punky and it's getting dangerous, that's when they're the best, But I don't go anywhere without a float suit. I'm sure a lot of guys do. I fish a lot up north, as I say. Those guys up there never wear float suits. Never. It appalls me that these guys never wear float suits up there. It just drives me crazy. Bad ice. They don't wear them. They feel that float suits aren't warm enough for the winter, and I totally disagree. I wear layers under mine, and nothing for us to fish 35 to 40 below up there, minus 40, in float suits and feel quite comfortable. But they don't use float suits up there, and very few of them do any jigging. They use them on sticks. They use minnows and sticks, and we'll outfish them 3 to 1, jigging with tubes and with Marsildas. And again, a Marsilda is just a name. It's one I like. Williams Wobblers are fantastic as well. I just like the weight of these, the Marsilda, because they're a heavier bait. And they're a heavier bait. And they drop quicker. And they're thin. They're more like a little bit of a minnow. So I'm kind of hooked on those. And I've always used Williams Wobblers, but I'm really hooked on these things. Okay, and you can get them anywhere too. That's it. Any questions? Any more? Yeah.
You say you primarily target 50 to like 60 feet of water. So was there a reason for that? Like, were you targeting bigger lakes?
No, absolutely not. I have no idea sizes. We have no idea what we're getting into with sizes. It's just that when you got a sonar, you can tell whether there's fish around, in most cases, and that's what we're going by. If we sit there for a half an hour and there's no fish around, I'm gone. Particularly perch. I'll leave it 15 minutes for perch. If they're not there, they're not there. I'm going to move around, which I'm sure all of you do. You got to move around for perch. Lake trout, whitefish, not maybe as much, except different depths. If you can get into different depths, that's where you might work out better. Perch in the spring or in the early season, you're going to be 15 feet on average, 15, 20 feet in that area. They're going to be there somewhere. They will relate to weeds for sure. You got to find the weeds in the early part of the year to find the fish. And when you find the weeds, you'll find the fish. But they're going to move. They'll move and they move. And then you'll find a group of them, and they're small. They're not going to get bigger. Move and get the bigger ones. If you're in the tournament, any of the tournaments, if you're getting all kinds of fish and you need, 15 fish or 20 fish, wherever the case may be, and they're small in your group, don't sit there for the 2 hours, because they're not going to stay small, or they're not going to get bigger. The bigger fish are somewhere else. The big ones don't travel with the little ones in any numbers. So move around. Whitefish, lake trout, get to the depth, you have no idea what you're going to get. I never have any idea what I'm going to get if it's a lake trout or a whitefish, and it's Sometimes easy to tell it's a lake trout because they dog a lot harder. A whitefish just pulls, doesn't fight as hard. Lake trout will dog and run and things like that. Whitefish will a little bit, but not. But I pulled them up and going, oh, I thought it was a whitefish and it was a lake trout. But no, not size-wise, no idea. Never. Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of guys that do that and do really, really well. I just don't do as well out in that depth as I do in a little bit shallower. And I know guys really kick me sometimes because they do quite well out in the 100 feet, right? I just can't find them out there. You know, I just can't find them. I like to go where it's running 50 feet and then maybe there's just a little drop into 55. That's all. I'll fish that edge. And then I'll jump up on the edge and I'll fish over on a little bit deeper and I'll move back and forth until I hit the spot that's there. And then the next day, of course, they're gone, as everybody knows, right? They're gone the next day, but that's how I do it. Okay.